Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Today, as it is the 31st, or at least it should be when this video goes up, I wanted to talk about something that is core to all human experience, and that is fear. And it seemed like an appropriate day to do it. So, fear, it's one of these things that is usually perceived as a problem, and for a lot of people it still is, because it's a case of it drives them away from things. It reinforces limiting beliefs. It causes issues in regards to taking action when something seems hard or seems difficult when it might not actually be. It prevents you from going and talking to people. I know personally that talking to certain individuals, trying to approach them for various reasons, can be some of the most difficult stuff that you will come across. The fear that I mentioned when I first started doing videos for this channel, even when it came to how difficult it was initially over the first few videos for me to get used to talking to an empty open space where I knew that I'm in a room by myself at the moment, but I knew full well that I would be putting my content out and my ideas and the things that I come across, parts of my life and so on, out to the world for judgment. And as a result, let's talk about some instances where the negatives kick off. And a lot of these things come in the form of either people holding themselves back or people acting out in a negative way that impacts others purely because they're afraid of something. In which case, if we're looking at things holding the fear that holds people back, that's where you have things like anxiety kick in. And in terms of the psychological anxiety as a more major condition, I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about is the more just normal anxious feelings that you get when you're doing something you've not done before, or if something seems difficult that you've had very limited experience of. Or, I mean, I'm fairly certain that at the very least most guys, and to an extent a large group of people across the population regardless, will have an appreciation of how scary it is to approach someone that you like or are interested in romantically. And as a result, that fear is a fear that usually it serves a good purpose. It's looking to keep you safe and keep you protected. But as a result, the safe option, the option with the lowest amount of risk, tends to be very much a case of holding yourself back and just avoiding the situation, because if you don't try, then there's no point. There's nothing that can touch you, and it's a very strong motivator. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't use it to motivate them in the right way. And one of the things that I do with some of my clients to get over this is to go over both the pros and cons of both doing something and not doing something. So there's 4 different questions. What are the pros of doing this? What are the cons of doing this? What are the pros of not doing it? What are the cons of not doing it? And usually, especially if you're keeping yourself grounded in reality, if it's something that you want to do, if it's something that could enrich your life and so on and so forth, then it's something that usually, after you've got over that initial fear of the various positives and negatives, then it helps people get along, and the fear then changes of being a fear of doing a thing to a fear of not doing a thing, and so it pushes you in the right direction. You run away from the fear to get to the right place. And that's it can be a good motivational tool. It may not be the most pleasant motivational tool, but then again, you're not if you're going to try and succeed, if you're going to try and get there, then you're going to run up against hardships and things that aren't comfortable, but will help you in the long run. And as a result, though, the other way, and this is something that again has popped up more recently with some of the things that have been that came out of an interview with Donald Trump. I believe there are 5 hours of tapes kicking around somewhere that I probably won't look into all that much. But in regards to his fear of losing face, his fear of failure, his fear of losing validation, and things like that. And as a result, this is where you have individuals who act out in negative ways out of that same fear, that lack of confidence, that insecurity, that lets the fear seep in and just stew. And so to combat the fear that just won't leave them alone, those individuals will act out, and they will look for anything to kind of drive that fear out of themselves, be that with the things that they do, or people, or deliberately making themselves stand out against others. And this is the case with Donald Trump. It's the case with people on the extremes of the political spectrums, because they're always afraid to be wrong, and they're never, and that's one of the reasons why they always try to shut down conversation. You are not likely to have a good, open conversation with an extremist on either end of the spectrum, purely because they are so entrenched in what they believe, and anything outside of that is scary to them. I mean, the fear of the unknown is the biggest fear that there is, but then again, you do have people that can use that to their advantage or spin it round the other way. In my personal opinion, the unknown is something to be explored and worked out. It's not something to be afraid of, because there may very well be scary, dangerous things out there, but also the potential gains of finding new things and exploring new options is far outweighs any potential scary boogeymen out there. And as a result, though, with these individuals, this second group who will try and put other people down out of fear that they would seem weak otherwise and things like that, with those individuals, it's a lot harder to get them to see from the other perspective, because they are so afraid, they are so terrified of anything outside of their own worldview. And with these individuals, though, because it is potentially quite hard to get through to these individuals, to try and open their minds to these other options and give them a bit more perspective. Some of the things that I tend to do is walk them through kind of scenarios. What happens if it's the next kind of step, I guess, from the 4 questions that I would ask normally, whereby you're actually getting them to visualize and work their way through the scenarios that they're laying out for themselves, some of which are potentially even scarier than the fear of trying something new. And obviously I'm seeing people that at the very least recognize that there's a problem, because that's why they come to me, but it is a much more difficult thing when someone has entrenched themselves in their worldview, in their beliefs, in their values, to the extent that they ultimately refuse that world outside of their little bubble. And as a result, though, I can't help but feel, in the broader scheme of things, that fear is a useful thing. It's a beneficial thing. We wouldn't have it as an emotion, as a reaction to things, unless it had served a purpose in the past. But as with some of the other things that I've mentioned in other videos, we need to look at this and be aware and have a good enough amount of perspective on it to kind of grant us some more control. Because just letting fear kind of rule your life and kind of get you to run away from things and hamper you in all of the various things that you do, that's not okay. And that's one of the reasons why seeing the amount of fear in the world grow, when also the amount of knowledge in the world is growing, and yet they don't seem to be touching one another, because the more you know, the less, that means that there's less unknown, and therefore it's less scary. And so it's worrying that, to me at the very least, that there's that void at the moment between all of the fear, all of the outrage and the acting out and the hiding that is going on in the world at large to one extent or another, and the fact that firstly there is more knowledge than there ever has been, more accessible than it ever has been in the past, so there shouldn't be as much unknown to be afraid of, but also that really and truly fear is a very natural thing, but it's also a very easy thing to get over if you have that a level of a slightly high raised level of awareness to what that fear is revolving around, or what it's doing to you. And so I'd like to ask you guys, what do you guys think? What are you afraid of just in your day-to-day life? How have you managed to get over that? Have you just managed to feel the fear and do it anyway, as per the title of a fairly good book? Or are you looking more towards other ways of dealing with it, whereby you motivate yourself in a different way, or you offer yourself rewards or something like that to get through it? Let me know, I'm interested. But otherwise, if you liked what I was saying here, please drop me a like, and if you're interested in other videos, then please check out my playlists and subscribe for more. Take care, guys.